How many times have you started a new diet or fitness plan at the start of the year with all the best intentions? This year's going to be different. This diet plan is different. This workout plan is different, only for the same thing to happen by February. If this is you, you are not alone. But here's the truth. Your problem isn't your willpower or motivation. It's your mindset. In this episode, I'm going to share with you the 3 essential mindset shifts that you need to have in order to get long-term weight loss in 2025. Here's a spoiler. It's not about more effort and working harder or starving yourself. It's about working smarter and thinking differently. I'll tell you why perfectionism is the killer to your success, why quick fixes are setting you up to fail, and how your relationship with food might be keeping you stuck. This isn't your typical new year, new you bullshit. What I'm sharing with you has evolved over 10 years working with thousands of different people. If you're ready to stop dieting and stop starting over, make sure you listen to this episode because today I'm going to help you break that cycle. Hello, welcome to today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about 3 essential mindset shifts that you need to have to get long-term results in 2025. Because it's not all about nutrition and exercise. If you only focus on nutrition and exercise, you're likely to get short-term success unless you have these really important mindset shifts. Your mindset is what will keep the weight off. Because in our experience, 90% of the weight loss equation, and especially long-term weight loss equation, is your psychology and how you think. If you don't know who I am, my name is Max Lowery. I'm a weight loss coach, and I've been helping women lose weight over the last 10 years, and I've helped over 1,000 women do that. I'm also joined by Live 360 coach, Mollie. Hello, Mollie.
Hi, everyone.
And yeah, let's get into it. So there are 3 main mindset shifts that we were going to talk about today, and there are many more. And they're always going to depend on the individual, but these are kind of the 3 big ones which we think will make a massive, massive difference. So we really want to make sure that you're not making these mistakes and these mindset issues into 2025 so that you're not doing the same thing that everyone else does, which is do some kind of quick fix, put a load of pressure on themselves to achieve loads of results in the short term, but then ultimately fail come February. And this just feeds into this cycle of self-belief and limiting beliefs that weight loss is not possible for you. So the first big one is known as all or nothing thinking. It is a huge, huge problem. I would say that 90% of the clients that I've worked with in the last 10 years suffer from all or nothing thinking in some way, shape, or form. It can also be called black and white thinking as well. And all or nothing thinking can start from when you're a child. It can be reinforced by parents, teachers, school, how you grow up, but then dieting makes it worse. And essentially, all or nothing thinking is when one slip up means complete failure. So you're trying to be perfect. So the classic thing that everyone's going to be doing in January is, right, I'm going to cut out alcohol for the next 30 days. I'm going to cut out carbs and never eat sugar again. I'm never going to have a dessert. I'm going to train 7 days every single week. I'm going to get 15,000 steps in every single day. And inevitably, you're not going to be able to do that one day. And people with all or nothing thinking tell themselves that they failed and then they give up, right? This is an incredibly draining cycle to be in because you're essentially using all this excitement and willpower motivation to set these completely unrealistic expectations on yourself, but ultimately you are setting yourself up to fail. And every time you fail, it feeds this idea that you cannot lose weight. And the longer it goes on, then you actually develop an identity of someone that cannot lose weight. And this is a big, big problem for a lot of our clients. Other examples would be missing one workout and then quitting the gym, eating a single off-plan meal or a cheat meal, as it were, and then giving up entirely. And I think I've used a little video demonstration of how ridiculous this is on Instagram. And the video kind of visual that I use is I spill a tiny bit of tea, so then I actually just pour the whole thing of tea out onto the table all over myself. Other examples would be if you had a single argument in your relationship, you'd break up. If you made a single mistake raising your children, you put them up for adoption. If you made a single mistake in your job, you quit. So obviously in other parts of life, it looks completely ridiculous, but for whatever reason, when it comes to dieting and weight loss, people don't see it as ridiculous. And it is a huge, huge problem.
I think with this as well is looking at the all side of this. So often, if you're thinking about going into the new year and you're wanting to go to the gym 7 times a week and cut out on alcohol and change things quite significantly, for how long are you going to enjoy that? Is that something that you can sustain? And I'm sure the answer will be no. So I think when you're thinking about this as well as this all or nothing thinking is when you really start to set high expectations and want to change something so significantly. And then suddenly when there's a slight feeling of failure, you go to nothing. So with weight loss and something that we do on the program, it's all about making it sustainable. And this approach is really difficult to sustain when you're setting these high expectations and thinking about doing all of it at once.
Yeah, look, basically, if you can't do it forever, don't do it for a day. It really is as simple as that. And some of the questions we're always asking our clients is, okay, what's the absolute minimum that you can do and be consistent with it? Because that is the key. The only thing that will actually get you success is consistency. It doesn't really matter what you do as long as you do it consistently. And that is the hardest thing to achieve. And when you have all or nothing thinking, when you're setting these completely unrealistic expectations, when you're telling yourself that you're going to lose all this weight by this date or you failed, then it's never going to become an enjoyable experience. And ultimately, it has to be enjoyable, it has to be easy, it has to fit into your life. So really, the mindset shift that needs to happen is progress over perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. If you try and be perfect, you are setting yourself up to fail. You are ultimately self-sabotaging yourself before you've even started. So, we're looking for like 80% consistency. We're looking for things that you can do in the long term. And often that is dialing back and it's really focusing on doing the minimum, because that's how we help our clients ultimately. We get them the maximum results, but we do that with a minimum effective dose. And that is much harder to visualize what that looks like. Black and white thinking, all or nothing thinking, in some ways is much simpler. It's like, right, if I just cut out all carbohydrates and don't eat any of those carbs, then I'll get this result in this much time. And that's a bit easier for human beings to understand. But whereas this minimum effective dose of basically you got to make these tiny tweaks and changes and ultimately do them forever for the rest of your life, it's not very satisfying. It's difficult to understand and visualize what that looks like. And it's also very difficult to have confidence in knowing what are the small tweaks and changes that you need to do as an individual. And ultimately, that is where having a coach makes this much, much easier. All of us coaches have got like 20 years combined experience working with clients. And we know just by talking to someone what the minimum effective dose is going to look like for them. So next time you make a mistake, and I want you to like really think about this going into January. Let's say you set all these expectations, you're going to do this, that, and that. Fine, whatever. But really think about what goes on in your head when you feel like you've made a mistake, because often the mistake isn't the issue. Like the fact that you've gone out and you've drunk more than you would like to, you've eaten more than you would like to, you told yourself you're not going to eat carbs, but you ate carbs for dinner one evening at a friend's birthday. That's not the issue. It's the reaction to the perceived mistake, which is the issue. That reaction of quitting ultimately, which then leads to, a whole host of issues and more weight gain and this idea that you can't succeed. So remember, it's not the mistake that's the issue. It's the reaction and the beliefs about the mistake. Those are the things that will actually stop you from finding that consistency.
I remember when I joined the program, I think Shane said it to me on one of my first calls, was curiosity and kindness. And I now use that with clients, but I think that's really a nice way of seeing this as well. Be curious with where this happens, but then when it does happen, be kind to yourself. Don't feel like a failure. Don't feel, like there's not going to be a way to move through it. So, if there's 2 words that you take into this reflection, for me, they really helped explore where my all or nothing thinking came from.
Compassion and curiosity is really, really important in this situation, because basically what usually happens is someone sets themselves those unrealistic expectations that I'm not going to eat any carbohydrates. And then obviously, inevitably, they give in and they have the carbohydrates. And usually what happens is there's a load of judgment and there's a critical inner voice of what's wrong with you? You failed. You've got no motivation. You failed again, pathetic, all this kind of stuff. But actually, if you attach that compassion and curiosity, you can be like, okay, why did I eat the carbohydrates? And it can be like, well, actually, probably what I set out to do was completely unrealistic. Carbohydrates are actually quite enjoyable, and there's no way in hell that I'm ever going to be able to not eat carbohydrates in the first place. So is it that I'm unmotivated and undisciplined, or is it that I just wasn't doing the right thing in the first place? So this compassion and curiosity is a really powerful skill, which can take that pressure off yourself. It's far more likely to lead to consistency, and it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy ultimately. All right. So all or nothing thinking, you need to stop, and you need to get into the mindset of progress over perfection, which leads us nicely into the next mindset shift. And that weight loss is not a quick fix. The goal isn't to lose weight. The goal is to become the type of person that can lose the weight and keep it off. Like the person you've been up until this moment, and that has led you into this situation of having weight to lose, is not the person that is going to get you the results. So you have to fundamentally shift your identity, and this takes time, right? You're not going to get it from a meal plan you do for 30 days. You're not going to do it from, like even we have a 90-day program, and yes, lots of clients lose a lot of weight in 90 days, but we have, loads of clients end up continuing with us because they realize there's more work to be done when it comes to their identity and their beliefs and their mindset and the root causes. So this is not a quick fix. Like you really can't go into this thinking, right, I'm just going to smash something for 30 days and then return back to normal. The classic example is with alcohol. Everyone goes and does dry January, and, fair play to them. They don't drink for 30 days. But then guess what? They go back to the exact same behavior when they return back to drinking, because they haven't fundamentally changed their relationship with alcohol. They haven't shifted their identity. They haven't addressed the root causes of why they drink too much in the first place. And this stuff takes a lot of time. And I think for lots of you listening, that might really put you off starting. You might think that's too hard, but really, you got to choose your hard. Because either way, life is hard. Like right now, if you have been struggling with your weight for a long time, if you feel like you've got nothing to wear when you're going out for special occasions, if your confidence has been ruined, if you're trapped in this cycle of dieting, then that is very hard. So which hard do you want? Do you want the hard of staying stuck exactly where you are? Or do you want the hard of working towards getting yourself out of the situation, which is hard, but actually there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's loads of benefits, and every aspect of your life will improve as a consequence.
I think with the hard as well is that often people think that losing weight is really difficult, often because of what they've been through, previous diets, having this mentality and feeling like they failed for so long. But actually, losing weight is simple. And the way that we teach it is through the basics. What is difficult is continuing to show up and continuing to stick by those small changes and those basics that we teach and go through. And I think that's the hard. And it's interesting because I definitely experienced it a bit during my journey of the basics are boring, and we're so used to having this stimulus, this constant reward, this excitement, this instant gratification, and it's really difficult to continue to do the basics right for a long period of time. So it's starting to enjoy those basics and trusting that they do work, and getting those basics right, which is obviously what we help our clients with, is really important. So you're not feeling like you're doing lots of things and lots of changes. Actually, the basics that are right for you, and we help you to find the motivation and the identity and the changes to keep that consistent.
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point, because a big limiting belief that people that we work with have is that to lose weight, you have to restrict and deprive yourself and punish yourself and throw your life away. So obviously when you hear us saying that this is going to take a long time, this is for the rest of your life, people are thinking, well, there's no fucking way that I am doing the things that I need to do to lose weight. But if you remember what we just spoke about with the previous point, that when you actually focus on the minimum effective dose, you do less, you do things that fit into your life, you do things that are sustainable and enjoyable, then yeah, weight loss isn't hard. Usually, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks into our program, clients are saying, it doesn't feel like I'm on a diet. I'm losing this weight and it doesn't feel like I'm dieting. I'm not hungry. I'm eating the foods that I enjoy. I'm moving my body in a way that I enjoy. That's what it needs to feel like. And, when I hear that, and it happens with virtually every single client, I know we've done our job properly and this is going to work. To get out of that mindset of you're just looking for this quick fix, because guess what? Keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results. That is the definition of insanity, all right? Don't be insane. You can't keep doing the quick fix, the keto, the fast 800, the juice fasting, cutting out carbs, smashing the gym for a month. You can't keep doing that and then expecting different results. Yes, you'll get short-term weight loss with that, but the weight's always going to come back on. And every time the weight comes back on, you're going to hate yourself, you're going to blame yourself, and it's just going to plant this seed of doubt that you can't do it. So the next time you do it, you won't try as hard, and eventually you will give up. Usually our clients are coming to us as a final resort. They've tried every possible scenario, and then they finally realize they can't hide from the truth anymore. They need proper support and accountability. They need to address the real reasons why they put on the weight in the first place. And then their life changes as a consequence of working with us. Final message on this second mindset shift. I'm going to tell you the same thing that we tell our clients at the very start of the program. This weight loss journey is going to take at least 1 year. So take that pressure off yourself at the start of 2025 to lose this much weight by the end of January, or to lose this much weight by the end of February. Just take that pressure off yourself and accept that this is going to take the entire year. Just that small mindset shift will mean you're far more likely to be consistent, because if you haven't got those specific markers that you need to hit by the end of January, because most likely you won't hit them, you're more likely to continue. You won't be telling yourself that you failed. So this journey is going to take at least a year. And yes, you could lose the weight in 3 to 6 months, but the goal isn't to lose weight. The goal is to become someone who can lose the weight and keep it off. And shifting your identity, becoming that person, takes time, especially if you've been dieting for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, like some of our clients. Final mindset shift is to get out of a restrictive mindset and start to practice restraint over restriction. So this is sometimes a bit of a difficult concept to understand, because people initially don't understand what the difference is between restriction and restraint, because they're quite similar words. They both begin with R, and they kind of maybe involve similar behaviors. However, there is a massive difference. Okay, so let's define what I mean by restriction and restraint. So someone who is being restrictive tells themselves, I'm not allowed to eat this food because I'm on a diet. Okay, basically it's like a child. You are acting like a child. And when you've got willpower motivation, you will be able to cut out the foods and not eat the foods that you want to eat. But those feelings of restriction and deprivation are going to build, and eventually you're going to give in. It's going to be like a pressure cooker. It's going to explode, and you're going to eat all the food. You're going to gorge and binge on the foods that you've been restricting yourself from. And obviously weight's going to come back on. You're going to tell yourself you failed, and it's just this vicious cycle. All right, so that is restrictive, being restrictive. And at no point should you be restrictive with food or whatever you're doing. But then we've got restraint. And restraint is essentially making decisions like an adult. So it's I'm choosing to have less, or I'm choosing not to have this because I'm an adult and I'm listening to my body, and maybe actually I don't want this food right now. All right, so an example would be, let's again, give a real world example. So person number one is practicing restraint, is at a friend's birthday, and a piece of cake is offered. And this person says, no, I can't eat this because I'm on a diet. That's restrictive. Person number two comes in as an adult who's not in a dieting mentality, is not being restrictive, is offered the cake and said, oh, that slice is way too big for me. I'll have half. Or I'm not hungry right now. I'm not going to have any of the cake. All right. So it's essentially just learning to listen to your body and your hunger cues and mindful eating, really. And what this means is you can still eat the foods that you enjoy. This is a big promise of ours, is that you can lose all this weight and still eat the foods you enjoy. And this is how you can actually do that, is by practicing restraint. Another example would be going out for dinner. And I think the usual thing that people do is either they're on a diet and they're not going to have the dinner, they have dessert, or they are, they're like, oh, I'm on a diet, but I'm out for dinner, so I'm definitely going to have dessert to make the most of it. Neither of those situations are they actually listening to their body and and being mindful. Whereas someone who's practicing restraint will go in and be like, right, I'm an adult, I can have the dessert if I want. Eating this one dessert isn't necessarily going to ruin everything, and it's not going to mean that I don't lose weight or I put on weight. But if there's nothing I like on the menu, I'm not going to have dessert. If nothing takes my fancy, I'm not going to have dessert. If I'm not hungry at the end of the meal, I'm not going to have dessert. So two big differences.
I think a really good question in these moments as well is, as you're practicing restraint, when you're confronted with a meal or a decision, asking yourself, what do you want more? Do you want the piece of cake, or do you want your weight loss goal? Do you want the piece of cake, or do you want to feel good tomorrow? Do you want the glass of wine, or do you want to sleep well? And it's asking those questions to yourself when you're looking at it more as a restraint will help you work out whether or not you want something in that moment.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be much harder to practice restraint if you're not connected with why you might be trying to change your behavior. So, and ultimately we call this your deep why, and it's what we kind of focus on with our clients right at the beginning of the program. We get them really to focus on why they're doing these things, because ultimately, if I could summarize all self-help into one sentence, it would be choose long-term over short-term, which is essentially what you're just describing. It's, do I want this short-term gratification, which might not mean I get the long-term benefit of what I'm trying to achieve? The more connected you are with not just like, oh, I want to lose weight, but with how and why losing weight is going to drastically improve your life, and how staying stuck where you are is not an option. It means that in those moments, you're going to be able to practice restraint better, because you could, like, yeah, I can have the dessert if I really want it, but actually, is this going to make my whole journey much easier? Is it worth the calories? What's been going on the rest of the week with my eating? How am I going to feel afterwards? Is the dessert even nice? All these kinds of questions. And it is ultimately just asking yourself questions instead of just acting on autopilot. That is ultimately what practicing restraint is, and being mindful is. It's just bringing awareness to your daily thoughts, feelings, reactions, emotions, and behaviors. And this is why we do have a mindfulness expert within the program, Ed. If you want to understand more about mindfulness and how it can help you, then do check out the podcast that we've recorded with him a few months back. But yeah, so get yourself out of a restrictive mindset. You're an adult. You can eat any food that you like. No food is off limits. There's no such thing as good or bad foods. No single food is going to make you lose weight. No single food is going to make you put on weight. It's about the bigger picture. And instead, start to practice restraint. And the way that you can do that is by getting really clear on why you are actually trying to lose weight in the first place. All right, so let's wrap up. So the 3 mindset shifts for 2025 are: get out of all or nothing thinking, get out of that being a perfectionist, and focus on progress over perfection. What's the minimum that you can commit to and be consistent with? Just start with that in January. Just pick a few very small habits. It could be, right, I'm going to eat more protein. I'm going to try and cut out snacking to the best of my ability. I'm going to try and get more steps in. All right, don't put numbers on it necessarily. Just say, I'm going to up my steps. Just do those small things and do them consistently. And if you make a mistake, remember, reframe it and tell yourself this is all part of the process. The reaction to the mistake is often worse than the mistake itself. Then we've got getting out of that quick fix mentality. This is going to take a long time, and at least 1 year. Take the pressure off yourself. This is going to be a much more enjoyable way to change your behavior. And finally, stop being restrictive. Instead, practice that restraint. All right, so hopefully this has been useful. As always, any questions at all, you know where to find me on Instagram. If you want to book in a chat, click the link below for a very quick 10-minute conversation with either myself or one of the team. And we'll be able to help you address what the root cause of the problem are and just explain how we might be able to help you. All right. It's very, very relaxed. Thank you very much, Mollie.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you same time next week.